virtually are at the end of February. We missed a fortnight, so I've got lots.
You've got time. Tell us all about it. What have you been seeing?
And please, interject and ask me if you're interested in something or you
I'm
want to know
interested in
something
it all. I've read your blog.
There you go. I went in and edited a few things, so I found some errors because I'm not writing for a media outlet at the moment. I skipped through a bit quickly, so editing is not as good as it should be. Fixed it today. Let's get into the reviews. Hello, everybody. I'm back. The first one I'll talk about, or the first two, are actually finished. The seasons are over, but I will mention them because particularly the first at Red Stitch, Wittenoom.
We interviewed about that last year.
Okay,
yeah. Fabulous.
It is really interesting. And I wanted to give it a bit of coverage because it is a really interesting piece and I think it might come back. Look, I hope. It's Wittenoom is the asbestos mine town in Pilbara. That's the name of it. Mary Ann Butler is the writer. She's from Darwin. And Susie D, who I think is just spectacular, particularly with new work, not only, but particularly with new work. She does really interesting staging, but also development of new work, which she did with this. And that's the reason it's such an interesting play. Just to give you an idea, it's a tragedy about a mother and daughter. The mother played by Caroline Lee, who also is wonderful, and Pearl is the daughter, Emily Goddard. Mother is called Dot. They're in a town that's been damaged by the asbestos mine. So the town has died, essentially. There's another story that's like that when we get to Nosferatu. And there are twin narratives that are interwoven, set, we don't know how far apart, a couple of years. One is... The first is lively, vigorous, funny, episodic dialogue and self-narration between mother and daughter, 15-year-old daughter. They're negotiating their relationship in Wittenoom, which is so remote, and this teenage kid just doesn't know what to do with herself. The second story is the same pair, mother and daughter, at an unspecified time after they have left Wittenoom. Dot has received her diagnosis of mesothelioma, awful terminal untreatable illness. And this was the original version of the story that Mary Ann Butler had, I read, about a mother and daughter, I believe her own story, and a diagnosis. And then Susie talked through this research into the remote location. So it becomes a contrasting between the two. They're intercut. The self-narration it's episodic, it's poetic. Some of it is quite dark, some of it is very funny, but it is intense, it's densely written, painful at times, but very powerful.
Well, let's hope it comes back, and anything Red Stitch does is worth seeing.
Absolutely, I'd say get on down there. Tiny theatre, great shows. I'll just say again briefly, this will be even briefer, Sunday by Anthony Way at the Melbourne Theatre Company ran only till the 18th of Feb, my husband's birthday, happy birthday, incorporates public information about the life and the arts philanthropy of Sunday and John Reed. Heidi, Heidelberg School, and Sunday was an eccentric character, and she was played just so beautifully by Nikki Shields. She's a febrile, audacious, nervy energy as this character. And she has the relationship with the husband, who's long-suffering, and Sydney Nolan, and that's a well-known affair that went on. It's all about the paintings, and it looks beautiful, and the performance is lovely. Entertaining, not just informational, but that is over. I don't know whether that will come back. Another one that is still running for a little bit, I'll whip through this and get to some longer chats after this, Nosferatu. If anyone knows the 1922 silent film Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. This is not gothic horror. The little shadow that you know from the Nosferatu character creeps across the backstage at one point, so you get a little echo of that. But this is directed by Bridget Belodis, written by Kezia Warner, leans towards entertainment and parody, I would say, and it's not always successful. Verges on the parody. Takes the vampire story, sets it in Tassie in a fictional mining town yet again that is dying yet again, and it only survives because a stranger comes to town. Guess what? He's a vampire. Real vampire. Everyone starts dying, but the vineyard he plants starts growing. What does he fertilise the earth with? You may well guess. So it's a bit of a hoot, but it does come a bit unstuck. Quirky and comedic in the first half and a bit slow. So those are finished. But we have still running Romeo and Juliet in the Gardens.
Oh, in the Botanic Gardens.
In the Botanical Gardens. Romantic tragedy, if you don't know, fall in love with the boy from the other side of the tracks, wrong family, everything ends badly for the teenagers. But this has a cast with a couple of older, skillful actors, including someone I think is versatile and wonderful to watch, Alison White.
Oh, she's
who is
fantastic.
Extraordinary. She plays the nurse and she walks on stage and everything lights up and the text comes to life and all sorts of things happen. Sid Brisbane is the puppyish servant, Peter, who's her sort of sidekick. Hugh Sexton, who's often in the outdoor shows, is a very stately Lord Montague, and Dion Mills, who's from Red Stitch, is Friar Lawrence. But some of the rest of the acting of the ensemble is, shall we say, uneven. What's charming about this, it's a new production. They've done Romeo and Juliet in the past before. One family, the Montagues, is a more English period sort of style, and the others are all drawing on an Indian costume and also Bollywood dance.
Oh.
And a lot of Indian Australian actors. So the Bollywood dance scene is probably, I have to tell you, the highlight, which it shouldn't be, the mask ball. But get out to the Gardens, it's a hoot.
Does it change locations within the gardens?
No, doesn't do
It
that.
doesn't.
Only Wind in the Willows does that these days. I don't think they're permitted to do that with the others. So we've got, you can choose Mary Poppins, Prima Facie or Mousetrap.
I'm really interested. I hope we can fit them all in. But Prima Facie, because I've seen the film but not the play, so I'm really interested to hear how the play works.
Did you see the National Theatre
film
with
Jodie
the play?
Comer?
So
Yes.
it's a filmed version of
It
the
is.
play. Yeah, so you're getting multi-camera shots. And I haven't seen that. I'm kind of glad I haven't. But this Prima Facie, written by Susie Miller, produced by Melbourne Theatre Company, runs till the end of March, 25th. It really does, I would say, smack you in the face with the rapid dialogue and the energetic performance by this actor, Sheridan Harbridge. So it's a Sydney company, not Griffin. Is it Griffin?
Belvoir?
No. Hang on, it's Griffin. It's Griffin. Sorry, I haven't got it written in my notes. So a Sydney actor, Jodie Comer, did it in London, and it was adapted and adjusted for London. So all the barristers, it's the law profession. She's a barrister. She's dynamic. She's working class. So in England, of course, I think she was Liverpool, or the accent's
Certainly
Liverpool,
northern
something.
Midlands or northern.
And so there's less opportunity for that range of accents for all the different characters. So it's a solo show, just to let people know. Almost empty stage. In the English one, there's a lot of set design and costume changes. So she's got an office and leather chairs and books and dresses and costumes, etc. This is much more spare, directed by Lee Lewis. She's a successful defence barrister, 11 years post-qualification experience. She prides herself on her continuing winning streak and high-octane performance in court, relentless, even I'd say heartless cross-examination of witnesses, and her pseudo-sensitive questioning of rape victims. And here is the key to the story. She unravels their evidence and makes their stories sound flimsy and ill-considered and poorly remembered and unlikely, or even worse, fabricated. What happens? She ends up in the same position. A sexual assault, by her alleged attacker, who was a colleague who she thought was, a warm and fuzzy pal. So she's a Rottweiler in the courtroom and goes for the jugular, and she's passionate about winning, not so much passionate about justice, and this changes. When she ends up in court herself, she experiences all of that. So this is what the conceit of this piece is, that her life is turned on its head. There are a few things that don't quite make sense dramatically, and the ending has a very long monologue about that is really a speech about the issues about law and rape victims.
I found that with the film. I thought, you don't need to tell us that. We've just seen the show.
We know that. You've told us that.
Yes, you don't need to lecture.
If it's going to be integrated, put it back in somewhere else. But there is no opportunity for someone to speak like that in a court case as a witness. As a victim, they're not allowed, or as a witness. It all happens beforehand, before the court case. But that was unfortunate. Her performance, Harbridge's performance, is impassioned, she's belligerent, she's ambitious, all of those things. And her energy and excitement enliven that character, but it does get a bit stumbly over the words on occasion. She loses some articulation and some of the accents and characters aren't differentiated sufficiently. What about you? What did you think? You haven't seen this one, but you saw this.
I haven't seen the play. I thought the film
London
was
version.
brilliant, but really disliked the lecture at the end.
Yeah.
But I thought the performance was brilliant. A little bit strident. It was like Jodie was shouting the whole play instead of talking to us.
I think that was the same
theatre.
with Sheridan Harbridge, and it felt like, well, it was pushed. If you're shouting, you need to shout from further down in the body. But if it's being pushed from the chest and the throat, then we're getting no emotion. You're getting sort of panic or something. So
Next one.
Might be our last, mightn't it? We'll see how we go. The Mousetrap.
An old favourite.
And our Mousetrap was, I saw the other night, we enjoyed ourselves so much. It is such a beautiful production directed by Robin Nevin. Again, another inimitable actor and director. It's a polished and buoyant production of this delicious old-fashioned murder mystery, which has been running for 70 years, apart from a bit of COVID lockdown, in London. And this is, and we saw it about maybe 10 years ago. I forgot the ending, fortunately, because we're not allowed to reveal the ending, who the villain is. So taut and deft direction by Robin Nevin, and nuanced and detailed performances by a really interesting cast that comprises several music theatre performers. They do sing a couple of little bits just by chance, and other talented newcomers. So Geraldine Turner plays Mrs. Boyle, who's a rather abrasive, abrupt character. Molly is played by Anna O'Byrne, and she was the lead in Love Never Dies. The Phantom. I always call it Paint Never Dries. I'm sorry. Love Never Dies. And Alex Rathgaber, another music theatre performer, plays her husband Giles. They're opening a guest house. They're wide-eyed and innocent novices at this sort of thing, and that, of course, is victim. They look like rabbits in the headlights. The snow has set in, the guests start arriving, they're all peculiar, and then two unexpected guests arrive, one of whom is the detective sergeant who says, "Oh, murderer on the run." So, of course, it all unfolds. They're all trapped inside a snowbound manor house. It's Agatha Christie at her best. It is witty, it's hilarious, the performances are just a riot, really. So I couldn't recommend it more. It's till the 26th of March, so I think have fun with that.
1 minute for, is it Mary Poppins?
Mary
haven't got to yet?
Mary Poppins we didn't get to. As I said, I saw a lot. There are still a few I haven't mentioned. But yeah, Mary Poppins was charming. The new Mary Poppins, I won't even describe to you the whole story. You should know this if you saw the film when you were a kid or saw the last show. Anyway, Mary Poppins, the nanny, she's played by Stephanie Jones this time, who meets the level of Verity Hunt Ballard, who was the first, who the creative team, we met a couple of them. I met one of the Shermans at the opening 10 years ago. Exciting. She meets the level of that Mary Poppins, Verity Hunt Ballard, who they thought, the creative team said she was their best, they thought. She's a triple threat. It is fun, it's beautiful, there's some exciting dance routines, and Supercalifragilistic and the rest of it is the most complicated dance and song routine. It's really worth seeing just for that. Costumes, beautiful. Dance and song, electrifying. The new songs that are introduced are really interesting, like Practically Perfect was new for this particular reproduction. Marina Pryor plays the bird woman and also the terrorising other nanny, Miss Andrew.
And that's still on?
Still on. That's on till, from February the 3rd, so I'm not certain for how long.
Okay,
I don't have an end date.
I'm sure it'll be going. It sounds like a really worthwhile
It's fun. Family show.
outing. Yes, isn't that fantastic? Kate, thanks so much for coming in and for your wonderful reviews, and we'll speak again soon.
Will do.